Everybody, welcome into To The Point. Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday. Lot to dive into today. We got some baseball from yesterday with lots of interesting plot lines and stories, and we did the Atlantic Division preview on Tuesday's program. So if you haven't listened to that, go back, check that out. We're doing the Metropolitan Division today. We'll get into the Western Conference later in the week. So that's what's on tap today. We do have some NFL news, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow's podcast when we preview the Thursday night football game that is not that exciting or intriguing, but we'll still talk about it and the line and all of that tomorrow. But last night was a perfect baseball night because they had nothing to compete with. There was no NFL preseason hockey, but who's watching that? It was baseball, 4 games, all coming on after one another. And overall, I think the sport had a really good day. I will still make the argument that the 1-game wildcard playoff is better than the best 2 out of 3. I know Blue Jays fans would disagree with me today, but I think the drama of that is superb to what we're getting, but I'm not complaining about getting some baseball again this afternoon and into tonight. But it was a fun day. There were some plot lines, and keeping it close to home here in Canada, I mean, I'm sure if you're writing an article, if you're writing for The Athletic, if you're writing in a Toronto sports paper, the headline is the Minnesota Twins win their first playoff game in 18 years. The Minnesota Twins win their first playoff game since 2004, which I guess would make it 19 years now. First playoff win in 19 years since the 2004 Atlantic Divisional Series against New York Yankees. And it might sound like a bigger deal. You win one playoff game, who cares? Well, that crowd in Minnesota cared. They were loud the entire game. And to put that into perspective, the Toronto Blue Jays have not won a playoff game since 2006. Sorry, since 2016. That's not yesterday either. So these streaks can pile up. These streaks can continue long after one might think. And for the Twins, they got a couple things yesterday. Pablo Lopez pitched a hell of a game. He was better than Kevin Gausman. He picked his spots better. He had the zone. He didn't bitch and complain after every pitch about the ball like Gausman did for the first 4 innings of the game. But he was good, and he had enough run support from Royce Lewis, who just came off the injured list, who hit 2 home runs in his first 2 at-bats, and he went 2 for 3 with a walk for the game. A couple of mistakes, and that's all it took because the Toronto Blue Jays, their story continues the way it's been the entire season. They are not able to score runs. The story of yesterday really could sum it up to runners in scoring position. Teams that were able to hit with runners in scoring position won their respective games. Teams that weren't did not. Diamondbacks got one late. That's what propelled them to their win. For the Blue Jays, doesn't matter if you get the 8th inning. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hits a leadoff double, and he's pointing to the bullpen. Bo Bichette strikes out on 3 pitches on an awful, just the third strike well out of the zone. He's swinging at nothing. Then comes up Kevin Biggio, who strikes out on 3 pitches, and now Alejandro Kirk hits it to first, and the inning's over before you know it. And I'm watching the entire game, and I'm thinking, the Blue Jays have momentum. It was Minnesota's throughout, but after about that 5th inning, I said, well, the Blue Jays are starting to feel it. They're starting to get some momentum. Maybe this game will flip. But ultimately, Their bats, who have more premium, who have more brand names, did not deliver. And Royce Lewis, who's a relative unknown, partly because he plays for the Minnesota Twins and partly because the Minnesota Twins never have success in the postseason, he was better than the Blue Jays yesterday. Pablo Lopez was better than Kevin Gausman. George Springer, 0 for 4. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 1 for 4. Alejandro Kirk didn't have a hit. The best bat yesterday for the Toronto Blue Jays was Kevin Kiermaier. Number 7 hitter in the lineup. A guy you don't expect to be there for his bat. He's there because he's one of the best center fielders in baseball over the last decade. And he comes up with the clutch hits. He's the one that gets people on base, trying to drive in some momentum, try to get something going, but nothing happened. And Matt Chapman had some looks, and you could look at it and go, well, Michael A. Taylor took away about 3 hits yesterday, which he did. He had a phenomenal game in center field. But them's the breaks. You got to find a way to do more than Minnesota. The Blue Jays, a team built on the home run and analytics and numbers and nothing about just feel of the game, yet the long ball of the Minnesota Twins defeated them. And ultimately, you could look at the game and say John Schneider and the analytics people did not make a mistake. Of course, I'll push back on that, and I don't agree. They pulled Gausman after the 4th inning. I didn't understand it. The way they used some of their bullpen. They pitched Swanson in the 5th inning, and he went 2/3 of an inning. Didn't understand that. Bring in Meza to finish one guy, and they go through 4 innings yesterday. They use a lot of relievers, and are they going to be able to go again today? I just don't know if this team knows who they want in certain spots. Jordan Hicks is your 8th inning guy. Whew. He would concern me. What is Swanson's role? What is Tim Meza's role coming out of the bullpen? And they were fantastic. 5 shutout bullpen innings from the Toronto Blue Jays, which is a strength of their team, as I've talked about all year. I think it's the biggest strength of their team. They would have won yesterday if anybody could have gotten a hit. But they waste a gem from the bullpen with bats that are just incompetent. You have more hits than Minnesota, 6-5, but yet it doesn't matter because you can't drive anybody in. Vladdy on second. Kiermaier gets on. He can't be brought in. And it's the best 2 out of 3. It goes into today, and you have to win today, or your season's over in Minnesota. And it'll be viewed as a disappointment. And nobody will be happy. Nobody will accept a loss to the Minnesota Twins. Are the Minnesota Twins that much worse than the Toronto Blue Jays? No. But oddly enough, a Toronto team that's the only team in Canada in baseball has more aura, has more respect put on them than the Minnesota Twins. So by proxy, you will be given a less favorable outlook of your season and how it went. A play yesterday that was kind of the talk of the town. Kevin Kiermaier hits a ball to third base. It jumps over the glove of the third baseman, and Bo Bichette, who's on second, sees Luis Rivera put up the stop sign, and he runs through going home. And Carlos Correa, who was clearly hurt because he can't swing hardly, had a phenomenal day in the field. Yet Minnesota's defense was great. Carlos Correa was fantastic. He showed why he's played in 80 postseason games and why he's still playing shortstop at this part of his career. Because he's still got an arm, he's still got the feel, smart player. He guns it home, perfect throw to Jeffers, and Jeffers tags Bichette before he can score. I think Bichette made the right decision. Yes, your third base coach is putting up the stop sign, but we have to remember he's a professional athlete. Sometimes it's just, this was late last night, so if you went to bed during this game, I'll update you. Nick Castellanos in the 8th inning hit a double to left field. Bryce Harper went from first to home. His third base coach put up the stop sign. He blew through it because he's Bryce Harper and he's confident, and they scored a run, and the Phillies ended up winning 4-1. Did they need that run? No, but it doesn't matter. You don't know what's going to happen in the 9th inning. So he didn't listen to his third base coach, and he ended up scoring the run. Bo Bichette didn't listen to his third base coach, and it didn't work out. To quote Frank Sinatra, that's life. It's going to happen. You're going to make a mistake. Was it a mistake? I don't think it was a mistake because I would have done the same thing. It's not as if Bo Bichette is Giancarlo Stanton and he can't run. He's a shortstop. He's able to cover it. It was just a great throw on the money, and Correa made a better play. He made a better play than Bichette in that moment. So I don't disagree. I mean, I disagree with the fact that people said it was a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake. Because if he scores a run in that moment, it's a whole different story. Whole different aura. Oh my God, Bichette, he didn't listen and he balled out, and that's just what happens. Bryce Harper did the same thing and it worked out for him. It just didn't work out for the Blue Jays. A win for the Phillies, a loss for the Blue Jays, so it makes you look at the decision differently. I think we all would have done the same whenever in life. Well, there are people who do this, but I think they live life incorrectly. They're afraid to take a chance. You see somebody put up the stop sign and you stop every time. You don't want to take a chance. You don't want to do anything. You just live the life that you've been living and you accept it. There's a speed limit every time you get in a car. And when you're on the highway and it says 110, how often are you going 110? I know in my family, being in a car with myself, driving, and being in the car with my father, driving, we're never going 110. Because nobody is. You want to get there faster. It's there. Okay, it's 110. Great. You're not going 110. Bichette saw the stop sign and kept going. They did not lose the game because of this decision. Only would have made it 3-2. You still would have needed another run. You would have lost the game 3-2 instead of 3-1. Who cares? But now it pivots to today, where Jose Berrios, the former Minnesota Twin, needs a game. He needs to pitch well. I would have went with Chris Bassett today. They're going with Berrios. He's going up against Sonny Gray, who had a pretty damn good season himself. What we saw after the Royce Lewis, the Twins went from the 4th inning to the 8th inning without getting a hit. Until Jordan Hicks got on the mound, they didn't get a hit that entire game. So they don't have great bats. Correa is clearly hurt. They can hit the long ball when you present the opportunity. I look at George Springer today. He was disappointing yesterday. He never really even got close to having an impact on the game as the leadoff hitter. He needs to be better. He needs to come up in a spot and deliver. Because Correa might not have yesterday with the bat, but he did with his defensive play. He did by saving the run against Bichette. By making a nice snag in the They hit that blooper. He comes over to make the play. He's still providing a service for the Twins. Royce Lewis was the hero of Game 1. Not a name you expected to see come up with 2 home runs in one playoff game. In his first playoff game, by the way. Who will it be for Toronto? You have more experience. You have more guys that have been in this spot. It can't just be the pitcher, because Gausman might not have been great. He only gives you 4 innings, but your bullpen was superb after that. So somebody with a bat in their hand needs to deliver, or the Minnesota Twins are going to advance to the American League Divisional Series and have a couple days to rest and prepare to face the reigning defending World Series champions, the Houston Astros. The game I expected, the series I expected, to be the worst out of the 4 was the best game of the day for me. Diamondbacks, Brewers. I loved it. This game was phenomenal. 2 pitchers who were who were no good. I talked about Brandon Papp, who started the game for Arizona. He was a disaster, as I predicted. Corbin Burns, who I thought would be better, he goes 4+, 5 hits, 2 walks, also gave up 3 home runs. But it was a tale of 2 teams, because you have Corbin Carroll, who's going to be the National League Rookie of the Year. He's awesome. If you hadn't watched him before, he's a fun player. Great at bats. He's good in the field. He's going to be a star. He already basically is a star, but he's proving it more and more here on the big stage. Yesterday, his first career playoff game, obviously, goes 2 for 3 with 2 walks, a home run. And he scored 2 runs. Not bad. Christian Walker, another rookie for the Diamondbacks. He goes 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs, including a clutch hit in the 8th inning that really sealed the 9th inning that sealed the game for the Diamondbacks, winning on the road. But this game had everything. You had drama. You had multiple challenges that the Diamondbacks won. The Diamondbacks did not have a hit with runners in scoring position until that 9th inning. Christian Walker with the double that made the game 6-3. They were 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position, because all their runs prior to that came via the long ball. Corbin Carroll, 2-run shot. Ketel Marte followed him, and then former Toronto Blue Jay Gabriel Moreno with the go-ahead RBI. That hurts. The catcher who didn't have power hits a home run in the postseason. Alejandro Kirk didn't exactly provide that yesterday, but hey, we're not comparing notes here. Well, they're probably not. I will. So you had that, and then Milwaukee, Josh Donaldson, zombie Josh Donaldson. I think his career's dead. He's in the Yankees. They stink, the Yankees. And what does he do yesterday, Josh Donaldson? He went 2 for 4. 2 for 4. Carlos Santana, 1 for 5, but he had an RBI. He's 37. But the young Diamondback team beats the old Milwaukee team in Game 1. But Arizona, and this player I did not think was going to start the game. Thankfully, Arizona decided to. How about Evan Longoria? Evan Longoria, he's still playing baseball. Former Tampa Bay Ray, great. Spent some time with the San Francisco Giants, didn't go all that well. Now he's in Arizona. Kind of the father figure with all these young kids. He made a play in the 5th inning. Put this in perspective. 5th inning, bases loaded, a reliever for the Diamondbacks couldn't get it together, so you're in trouble. And it's a 4-3 Arizona lead. They hit one right off the edge of the bat. Longoria makes the play out of midair, dives it out of midair, snags it, gets on the ground. The base runner at second had taken a big lead, thinking, okay, that ball's going to go to left. Longoria then has the time, throws the ball to second, inning-ending double play, and that really sealed the momentum for the Brewers. They had their chance in the 5th. They couldn't capitalize, and Arizona goes on to win the game. And speaking of Arizona getting some good pitching, Ryan Thompson went an inning and 2/3. Kevin Ginkel went 2 full innings, 4 strikeouts. He pitched 30 pitches for them. He was phenomenal. And Paul Sewald, who they acquired from Seattle at the trade deadline, who's a great closer, he didn't allow a hit. He seals the game for Arizona. It was a lot of fever, a lot of drama in this game. Home run after home run. Who's going to come up with the bigger hit? Seeing the rookies just play with no care and just hoping for the best for the Diamondbacks. Seeing the Evan Longoria, Josh Donaldson, these old guys kind of have their moment, maybe their last moments in baseball. It was incredibly entertaining. And obviously that game too goes tonight as well. Zach Gallen, if you haven't seen him pitch for the Diamondbacks, he's damn good. He goes up against Freddie Peralta. I just pegged the Milwaukee win in Game 1 because I like their starting pitching matchup better, and I thought they'd win at home. Arizona, they're now in the driver's seat because their best pitcher is pitching today. And Milwaukee's without Brandon Woodruff for the postseason, so he'd be pitching today. If he was healthy, he's not, obviously. Milwaukee could be in trouble. Arizona, this is your chance to win this series. You have your best pitcher on the mound. Your bats are feeling good about yourselves. You don't want to push it to a Game 3. Merrill Kelly is a solid pitcher, and you might be able to win that game. And Milwaukee hasn't even announced who they're going to pitch in Game 3 yet, which would concern me a little bit. For Milwaukee, if you're a Milwaukee Brewers fan. But the Diamondbacks, this is your opportunity. Not to mention you get 2 days off if you win today. DS only starts on Saturday. Arizona can win, celebrate Milwaukee, maybe even fly home, then go to Los Angeles with the game on Saturday because they'll play their division rivals, the Dodgers, in the National League Divisional Series. But this is their chance. Rangers and the Rays was probably the most boring game of the day, I would argue. Pardon me. The Rays lost because they didn't get any clutch hits and they made costly mistakes. Tyler Glasnow in the 5th inning throws a ball to Mars over the head of his catcher. Runners on third, comes in to score. Then later that inning, ball hit to center field, bounces on Jose Siri, doesn't know what to do with the ball, then airmails it completely, just aiming for the dugout. Another run scores, and the Rangers ended up blowing out the Rays, and they try to seal that series today. Jordan Montgomery, 7 scoreless. 7 scoreless for him. acquired at the trade deadline. He made an excellent play in the second inning. Siri went for the bunt. He dives out, makes a great play. My guy, Evan Carter, who I talked about, he made a play in the outfield in the first inning, diving out to end the inning. I mean, I like when I'm right. I mean, Evan Carter went 2 for 2 yesterday, 2 walks, and he saved a run. Not too shabby. As their ninth hitter. Ninth in the lineup. I'm sure the Blue Jays would have liked somebody in the bottom of their lineup to deliver, but Evan Carter did for the Texas Rangers. Zach Eflin, Nathan Eovaldi. Eovaldi, a former member of the Tampa Bay Rays. He could win today. And you want to talk about pathetic. The Tampa Bay Rays at the Trop yesterday. I'm watching the game, and they only had 19,000 fans there yesterday. I don't think it was 19,000. But just to put that into perspective, they had 19,704 fans were at the Trop yesterday to watch Game 4. This is courtesy of The Athletic. The last time a postseason game drew so few fans in a non-COVID year was Game 7 of the 1919 World Series, a best-of-9 series involving the Chicago White Sox and the Cincinnati Reds. That series is infamous for the betting scandal that led to the lifetime ban of 8 members of Chicago White Sox, including, if you remember that whole saga. But the Tampa Bay Rays are they're going to build another stadium in downtown St. Pete, so not exactly Tampa. But even you get a home playoff, they always get home playoff games. They're always a good team, and nobody shows up to watch the Tampa Bay Rays. The lowest attendance in over 100 years at MLB postseason game, and it was not 19,000. They lied about that number, and it was still the worst attendance in 100 years. It's just embarrassing for baseball, not to mention you have low attendance in the ugliest stadium in baseball, which doesn't help either because you're looking around going, oh, look at this dump, the Trop. See what their attendance is like today in a must-win game. Texas Rangers looking to advance to the American League Divisional Series. The last game of the day was the Phillies and the Marlins. Zach Wheeler, 6 2/3, 8 strikeouts, no earned runs, just a dominant outing for him. He left the game with the bases loaded, but Jose Alvarado was able to escape from it. Every member of the Phillies had a hit last night, which is an impressive stat. But I looked at from the Phillies, and this is why I talk about the Phillies being a team that I think they're going to beat the Marlins. And when they play the Braves, they're dangerous. Let's go to the bottom of their lineup. So we'll start with Nick Castellanos, their number 6 hitter. He went 2 for 4 RBI last night. Bryson Stott, RBI. Christian Pash, RBI. Jose Rojas scored a run. That's 6 to 9. 6 to 9 in your lineup, and they're all producing. But then you have Trey Turner, who's ultra fast. Alec Baum drew in a run. Bryce Harper's the ultimate competitor. And you have Philadelphia behind you, who they know how good this team is. And yes, everybody around baseball is aware of the Atlanta Braves, that they had a historical season, and that you should be worried about them because they are that good. Absolutely. But the Phillies beat them last year. And the Marlins weren't even terrible last night. They had their opportunities, bases loaded in the 7th, but they just couldn't bring them in. Josh Bell, who was a deadline ad I talked about yesterday, he went 3 for 4. He had some big hits in that game, but Jorge Soler 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Jazz Chisholm 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts. Bottom of the from 6 to 9 in the Marlins lineup, no hits compared to the Phillies. And how about this? Phillies bullpen allowed 2 hits. That's it. Craig Kimbrell, who I worry about when he gets on the mound, he was solid. Must-win game for the Marlins with Aaron Nola, who had a disappointing regular season, but when he's on his game, he's as good as it gets in baseball, against Braxton Garrett. We'll see what comes of it. I think the Marlins are in tough, but they've been a resilient team all year. And Braxton Garrett is a very good pitcher. We'll see if some of the bigger Marlins names can produce today and extend that series into Game 3 tomorrow. I thought every series would go 3 games. That's what I said yesterday. I think the Toronto Blue Jays will win today. That's going to 3 games. The Rays Rangers, I'm not so sure. That one might be over today, and I think I'll be wrong about that. About it going 3. D-backs Brewers, I said this is the best chance for the Diamondbacks just to win this series because they have their best pitcher on the mound. Zach Gallen is the best they got. He's a guy that will be in contention for the National League Cy Young. He won't win it, but he'll be in contention. This is your chance. I think it'll be the series I look forward to the least, I think will be another great game today. And the Phillies, I like my Phillies. That one might be over today. But it would be fun to see them all go 3 games because then you get drama tomorrow night and must-win situations for everybody. But pressure today on the Rays, on the Blue Jays, the Brewers, and the Miami Marlins. So that's what's happening with baseball. Let's now pivot to the NHL and the second of our divisional previews, the Metropolitan Division in the Eastern Conference. Interesting division. A division that has went through a lot of changes. Teams that are in different modes, teams that are trying to find their goal, find their purpose, figure out who they are going forward. And let's start with a team that I don't think will finish last, but a team that's gone through a lot. The Columbus Blue Jackets. Columbus Blue Jackets are in the news for basically the entire month of September because of Mike Babcock. They hired him in July. They brought him in. Then comes the phone pitcher scandal, and he's no longer employed by the team. And he's gone, and the Blue Jackets are moving forward with Pascal Vincent as their new head coach. So he's in, Babcock's out. They're trying to move past this. Jarmo Kekalainen did not get fired. People wanted him fired because even when there's no evidence that you did anything wrong in today's culture, you get fired for it or you get canceled or shunned. But thank you, liberals. We then pivot. Where does this team did a lot this offseason. This team's trying to be competitive. They're trying to be forward-thinking and looking at their situation going, the Metro's not that difficult. Let's see what we can do. So Columbus had the 3rd pick in the draft. We all thought Adam Fantilli was going to the Anaheim Ducks. They went a different direction. Adam Fantilli is now a member of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Dominant at Michigan last year. The best player in college hockey after after Christmas. A strong into the World Juniors, then he dominated Michigan, ended up in the Final Four, but did not win. He's not going back to school. He's playing in the National Hockey League this year. They then traded with the Philadelphia Flyers, who we'll talk about later, acquiring Ivan Provorov, a defenseman that has offensive upside, that has been colorful to say the least the last couple of years, has been more in the news because of his stance on gay pride and things of that nature than his play on the ice. But he's a defenseman that has a big skill set. He can be physical when he wants to. He has his limitations. A power play defenseman, a good ad for Columbus. They signed Damon Severson from the New Jersey Devils. He left New Jersey. It was kind of a sign and trade. He ends up with Columbus, signs a 7-year deal. So they reworked their defense core. And I added this name even though he played a few games with the team last year. David Jiricek. Jiricek, you might remember playing at the World Juniors last year for Team Czech Republic. Scored the game-winning goal in the semifinal against Team Sweden. Won defenseman of the tournament. He was almost a point-per-game player in the American League last year as a 19-year-old. I think he's going to start the season with the big team, with the big club. And you look at what I just said. Severson's been in the league 7 years. You have Zach Werenski, who's back healthy, when available, is a phenomenal player. Provorov, Jiricek, Eric Goodbranson, a veteran. Nick Blankenberg, a defenseman I really like. Adam Boquist, also on this team. So really, they have about 7 or 8, because they also have Andrew Peak, who's played over 100 games in the National Hockey League. They have about 8 defensemen that are NHL defensemen on this team. Now, some of them have their limitations, but I credit Columbus on stockpiling talent. We don't know how good Jiricek is going to be at the NHL level. I like him a lot personally. He's big. He's got a big shot. He's physical. He doesn't get thrown around, even though he was a youngster last year when he did play in NHL games. And they have versatility. Columbus might be one of those teams that plays with 2 defensemen on a power play. I disagree with it every time. I hate it. I would never do it. But they might. Not everybody has to agree with me. I think playing 2 defensemen on the power play is stupid because no defenseman has that great of a shot. Look at the NHL. Go through the names. It doesn't happen. And quite frankly, if your power play is running through a defenseman, your power play isn't very good. If you want Morgan Rielly to touch the puck more on the Maple Leafs power play, you're stupid. And you're not going to score many goals because he's not doing anything. But Columbus might. Because eventually, if Jiricek's as good as they think he is, he's going to be on the power play. Because he's got a better shot than Werenski. He's got a better shot than Provorov. Simple as that. Likely won't start there. I think Werenski will begin on the power play. Provorov will be fighting for minutes as well. But they have option, and to me, it's by far the biggest strength of their team is their defense. And just the depth that they have. And as I talk about this, I'm going to look if I can find if they have their just their power play outlook, because sometimes. So as of right now, they do not have 2D in the power play. But they might. If Jiricek makes the team. Which he should. The rest of this group. Fantilli obviously comes in. Youngster. Kent Johnson, another young player. Jack Roslovic, Cole Sillinger. Alexander Tessier, who didn't play in the NHL at all last year, played in Switzerland because his father was dealing with cancer, so he's coming over. Obviously, Johnny Gaudreau. You have Kirill Marchenko, who is basically just all goals, no assists. He had almost had 20 goals last year, and he had 2 assists on the season. And Patrick Laine returns after signing his extension. So up front, you have 2 wingers who are both quite good in Gaudreau and Laine. And what you need to happen is you need Fantilli to be a number 1 center on this team. But it's too much to ask him of that right away. You do have Boone Jenner, but he's not. Boone Jenner is what he is. Thing is, what do? Do they play Laine at center? That might sound crazy, but I think the team might do it. They also have Sean Corrali, who will play down in their lineup. Eric Robertson's a speedster who's kind of like Michael Grabner. He's got great speed. He's always in a great position, but he can't finish. Marchenko's got a big shot. So I think this team's fun. They're going to be a good watch. Interested to see their style now that it's not Babcock and it's Vincent, who has not been a head coach before. I'm curious to see the work ethic, the defensive mindset of the forwards. I think this team will score a lot of goals because of the creativity. I know on the depth chart they have Fantilli playing with Kent Johnson, which is intriguing. Obviously they're on the same World Junior team, and they've had some interactions with one another, both guys being college guys. So they have that connection. So I don't mind that look. If Fantilli, if he gets started as a third line center, continue to build, continue to get better, and maybe get a bigger look as the season goes on. Because you're a rookie, you're going to go through your trials and tribulations. It's not all going to be smooth sailing. But the biggest thing for him is he's got the NHL body already. He's a big physical force. I don't think he's going to be pushed around. And you have some talented wingers on this team. Gaudreau, Laine, Marchenko is just a pure goal scorer. Tessier is an unknown because he didn't play last year. But last time I saw him play in the NHL, he was good. Sillinger's another youngster, but he's looking for a bounce back after kind of a poor sophomore season. So I think Columbus did a lot this offseason to be competitive, and they might be disappointed when they don't make the playoffs because I think that's the expectation. You have Elvis Merzlikins. They claim Spencer Martin off waivers from the Vancouver Canucks in net. They have Aaron Dell, who's been in the league a long time. But Merzlikins is your number 1 goalie. With Korpisalo gone, it's locked in now. Columbus will be better than they were last year. They will play in competitive games. And while the national media might not tell you this because they talk about 4 teams and they can only focus on the 4 because it's too difficult to cover the whole league, no offense, Columbus will be a fun watch. And when your favorite team plays Columbus, you'll enjoy it. And quite frankly, that's what we're going to do right now. Every year, I pick a team that I watch. The past 2 years, it was New Jersey 2 years ago, and it was Buffalo last year. 2 teams that were not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to be a fun watch. And those are the teams that I embodied and I enjoyed. 2 years ago, I remember I tracked it. I watched 62 of the 82 New Jersey Devils games, and that team was terrible. But I did it. And then last year I watched, had to have been over 50 Buffalo games. Wasn't hard for me. Buffalo Saturday afternoon, just sit down and enjoy. They'd score about 6 goals. Their opponents would score 7. Columbus is that team for me this year. Columbus is my little pet team that I like to watch, that I'm going to enjoy because I like Fantilli. They're going to be fun. And I think for them, they can play important games come the end of the year. Because as we'll get into, the Metropolitan Division is not that great. It just isn't. It's not. Doesn't have that much talent. So Columbus can be competitive in this division. Let's go to the team that I believe will be the last place finisher in the Metropolitan Division. That's the Philadelphia Flyers. Philly finally has embraced the tanking model. Although they still have Carter Hart for some reason. Provorov is in Columbus. They took on Cal Peterson's contract to help LA out, so they could do a couple deals to get money to acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois. But Philly is with Danny Briere now as the new general manager, Keith Jones as the new president of hockey operations. Torts still the head coach. This team is in transition, and they're looking towards the future and not towards the present. In the offseason, they acquired Ryan Poehling from the Montreal Canadiens, so they get a young center, hoping that he has something and can be more than he's been. They signed Garnet Hathaway, a player I like. If your team's going to be bad, you want to have some toughness. Hathaway's ultra competitive, works into that. Veteran defenseman Mark Stahl. Yes, Mark Stahl, still in the NHL, on the Florida Panthers last year. He's back for some reason. He's not a good defenseman. They get Sean Walker in that trade, flipping Cal Peterson. Sean Walker comes over from the Los Angeles Kings. Philly, the good news for Philly. Sean Couturier is healthy after it looked like he might not play again. He's in camp. He's played preseason games. He's back. So I'm happy to see that. The Bathurst, New Brunswick native. I didn't want his career to go out just on an injury. He is back playing again after multiple neck surgeries. Great for Sean Couturier. One of the good ones. Another good story. Cam Atkinson has barely played in the last 2 years. Another former Columbus Blue Jacket. He's healthy. He's going to play. He's going to try to get through the year. Hopefully he's healthy. He's another guy that has had a really good career. Another good guy. He's back on the ice. I'm happy for that. Philly does have some interesting talent. Joel Farabee, good player, great hands, a skilled little winger that is a 20 to 25 goal scorer, maybe can push it to 30 in a perfect year. Travis Konechny. This is a guy I thought was going to be traded at the deadline last year. I penciled him into the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, I credit Toronto getting a guy like Bertuzzi, Max Domi. Konechny fits into that mold. He's that kind of player. Piss and vinegar, gets in your face. He's only about 5'9", but he doesn't care. His size doesn't matter. He'll come at you every shift, and he'll score 25 to 30 goals. And he's just a tough player. I like him. Scott Lawton's their captain. Morgan Frost will get a bigger look. Their back end filled with kind of old guys, Ristolainen, Mark Stahl, Sanheim, and Cam York, and guys that they plan to see if they can play. Philly's plan this season is simple. They want to be one of the worst teams in the NHL. They want to be picking high in the draft and stockpile talent to move into the future. So twofold. Be bad, but also trade the players that are good on your team so you can get more draft capital. Like a Konechny. Like a Carter Hart. Carter Hart had a decent season last year. Carter Hart's still a relative unknown. What is he as an NHL talent? There are teams that have worse goaltending situations than Philly, and I think Carter Hart will still have value on the open market. He has that upside. You look around and go, Los Angeles Kings. They already did a deal with them to offload salary. I think Los Angeles will look. New Jersey Devils. There are if Hellebuck does not get traded from Winnipeg, Carter Hart will jump up the line when it comes to just, I want that player. Montreal will want to join the mix and say, please take Jake Allen with a year left on his deal. They're not biting on that. Montreal will have to deal with him. Carter Hart, Connor Hellebuck, names to monitor in the goaltending market with teams like New Jersey, teams like Los Angeles, both teams that I expect to make the playoffs, will want to upgrade their goaltending before the year is over. So Philly might not be an interesting team to watch. I don't think they'll finish high in the standings, but they will be a team that everybody is calling come trade deadline time to acquire the talent that they do have. That's the Flyers season, and I applaud Danny Briere for doing something that the old regime should have done about 5 years ago and sell off talent. Because your team isn't that good. Thank you. Washington Capitals. New coach, Peter Laviolette fired or let go or mutually agreed to part ways, which is the new way you say you fire a coach, but we keep it real here to the point. He was fired. Washington is so cap strapped. They're in such hell. They don't have any flexibility. They don't have any room to wiggle, if you will. And yet, their team isn't that good. Washington missed the playoffs last year for the first time in a long time. The Ovechkin era, they had not missed when they hadn't really missed in his entire career. Gone through every year, winning the championship in 2018. Looking at Washington, they still have the grade 8. Nick Backstrom still on the team. Tom Wilson, TJ Oshie, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Anthony Mantha, Dylan Strome. It's the same old faces. It's the same old team, what they've done. They did sign Tom Wilson to a long-term extension. Thought they might look to move him. But Washington has a couple problems. They don't have a whole lot of depth. They don't have young players pushing through that excite you. And they're just not a good team. They don't have the talent. They don't have the depth. And teams around them are getting better, faster, everything. I feel bad for Alex Ovechkin because you have nothing to trade. Oshie's an advanced asset. Kuznetsov is more of a problem than a solution. They signed Darcy Kemper and Charlie Lindgren to long-term contract last year, so you have your 1-2 punch in net, which it's a fine tandem, but it's not elite of the elite. John Carlson, tough luck. He missed most of last year with that injury when he took the puck to the face. So it's good to see him back. Nick Jensen, see what Rasmus Sandin can do in his first full season as a Washington Capital. Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Joel Edmondson, who's going to miss the first month and change of the season. Washington's Washington. And while this division is not full of killers, they are a minnow in a pool full of piranhas. I'm not even saying this team has a bunch of sharks. They don't have dangerous animals, but they are a minnow. Washington is better than Philadelphia. Washington might be better than Columbus because I like their goaltending a little more. But they're not going to be. They missed the playoffs last year, and they're not going to play. They're not going to make the playoffs again this year. An older team in this division, who we'll talk about, got better. Washington really did not. And I'm not saying it was easy. It would have been easy, but they didn't bring in a single name that excites you to this team. And I feel bad for Alex Ovechkin because he's one of my favorite players. I love the grade 8. I had literally a picture of him up on my wall in my parents' home because he was my favorite. But I'm going to go through this. Ovechkin, Backstrom, Mantha, Wilson, Kuznetsov, Sonny Milano, Strome, Oshie, Snevely, Protas, Dowd, Obe-Kubel, all 12 of their forwards who were projected to start the year were on the team last year that did not make the playoffs. And every one of their defensemen, other than Sandin and Edmondson, were on the team last year that did not make the postseason, and the same two goaltenders. The interest in watching Washington is to see how many goals Alex Ovechkin can put up as he chases Gretzky's record. And if you're a Leaf fan, I'm sure you'll be interested in watching Washington because you want to see how Rasmus Sandin can perform after leaving the Mecca. We'll see. I think it'll be a tough go for him. Where to next? Well, let's go to the Islanders because they're in the same position. They didn't do anything either. Lou Lamoriello, basically the same teams returning other than Zach Parise, who might retire, might come back later in the season. We'll see. Barzal, Cizikas, Horvat, Brock Nelson, J.G. Pajot, Palmieri, Anders Lee, Pierre Engvall. All returning for the Islanders with Sorokin and Varlamov as their goaltending tandem. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing for the Islanders. They did make the playoffs last year, and they did lose to Carolina, who's a damn good team, who we'll talk about. The Islanders are the Islanders. They're going to play an ugly style. They're going to check it to death. And if they get to the playoffs, they can be a threat. Do the Islanders get back to the playoffs? That's my concern because as a wild card, I think it's tougher with teams in the Atlantic. As we talked about yesterday, the Ottawas of the world, the Buffaloes of the world, the Floridas of the world, they will be competitive and they will be tougher than in years past. Now, the advantage for a team like the Islanders, you get to play Philly, get to play Columbus. When you play Washington, you have to beat them. And they always seem to be a team that makes it one year, misses the next, the New York Islanders. They'll find a way in. They added Bo Horvat, so that is a good addition. No doubt about it. They needed some more talent on this roster. They needed some guys to kind of break through and show themselves a little bit. And on the Islanders, Noah Dobson's been fantastic. Sebastian Aho, the defenseman. Scott Mayfield, Ryan Pollock, Alexander Romanov, Adam Pelech. I love their defense corps. They've had the same defense corps for a while, and it's always been very solid. For me, for the Islanders, it's tough to say, is it the system or is it the player? Matthew Barzal always leaves me wanting more. I watch his games and I go, what did you really accomplish? A lot of razzle-dazzle, a lot of, okay, he skated really fast up the ice and he hits the post, then he changes. And that gives you a lot in games. If you can just do a couple, oh, he hit the post. You see that shift? And then people remember that, and they don't remember the rest of the game where you do jack shit. It's like a magician. Well, that's those other, or even a stand-up comedian. Well, the rest of that set sucked, but that one joke about the Jewish, about the Jews, that was funny. Yeah. Anything like that. You just need one. Something. That's Barzal. Gives you a funny one-liner. Gives you something to remember. Like Aaron Rodgers in the Pat McAfee show when he called Travis Kelce Mr. Pfizer. I don't know if the rest of the hit was good, but I thought that was funny. I thought that was clever. I was in on the bit. And now my mother's saying me and Aaron Rodgers have the same mustache. He's my boy now. Pushing back against authority. I'm right there with you, Aaron. Everybody's trying to take you down. Everybody's trying to take us down. But the Islanders are a good team. They'll be competitive. They'll be in the thick of things. But every year there are teams that made the playoff the year before and then they miss. And I think the Islanders will be one of those teams. Teams around them have gotten better. And I think we'll see that change with the Islanders. Now, so this is my biggest take. This is my biggest so far going through this. It's my biggest observation, and I think it'll be my hottest take of the divisional series previews. I believe the New York Rangers are going to miss the playoffs. The New York Rangers who tanked, then turned it around quickly, and have gone through head coaches. Now have Peter Laviolette after firing Gerard Gallant, losing in the first round. I hated their offseason. I think they dropped the ball. I remember when the season ended. I had a phone call with my uncle and we were talking about the Leafs because he's a big Leaf fan. And I talked about, well, the Rangers might do this and maybe they'll look to trade for Martin or they need to get heavier. They need to do something. They can't keep the status quo and just change the head coach. Well, that's what they did. Lavi comes in, you keep Shesterkin, and you add a bunch of old men. Blake Wheeler comes in on minimum. Jonathan Quick comes in on a minimum contract. Nick Bonino, who's been everywhere. Pitlick, Eric Gustafsson. If you ever want me to be excited about your team, don't have Eric Gustafsson on it. There's just a pro tip. But the Rangers, Zibanejad. I love him. I'll never complain about seeing him play. He's ultimate competitor. He wasn't that great in the playoffs, but I love him. Artemi Panarin. The only difference in Panarin is he's now bald. Don't know, he went bald for some reason. He's the most overrated player in the league. He's the ultimate non-winner, which would make him a loser, if you ask me. He's a losing player. He's selfish. Any attribute I can put, it's coming with a negative because he doesn't do it for me. I wouldn't want him on my team. He's not a winner. Enough of Artemi Panarin. He's still there. Chris Kreider, love him, but he's getting older. Alexi Lafreniere and Capo Caco. Both back, but what are they? Are the Rangers excited that they're back, or did they just both take them back as you had to? Filipito's a stud. I love him. Trocheck, again, in his first season with the Rangers, left something to be desired. I preferred Andrew Kopp in that role. They swapped Kopp for Trocheck. It's an older, same team that they had last year. Defense-wise, I love them. Keandre Miller is a flat-out stud. He's back up the Brinks truck for him. He's on the brink of being a star. Adam Fox, we know what he is. Lindgren, perfect pairing with him. Trouba. You have Braden Schneider and you have Gustafsson. Ugh. I just look at this team. They're not tough enough. They don't have enough compete. And yes, the regular season is more skilled base than it is in the playoffs. You don't have to fight for open ice as much. And I don't even love the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't. But I think Pittsburgh will make the playoffs in this division. I don't think the Rangers will. Their playoff streak will come to an end because this team is not well built. I think the house is going to cave in on this group, and it's not going to be pretty. People in New York are going to be pissed Mets don't make the playoffs. Yankees don't make the playoffs. The Jets and the Giants are both 1-3. And then the Rangers, possibly the Islanders, don't make the postseason. Yeesh. They needed to change their team. And they just said, okay, let's get a new coach who's coached everywhere. It's another recycled guy. Bring in Blake Wheeler. I don't care if he's on minimum. He's on minimum because nobody wanted him. He's on minimum because anybody could have had him. And he was bought out in Winnipeg. Former captain, didn't go well. Okay, great. You got Blake Wheeler. What's that doing for your team? How's that helping? Is he going to play a top 6 role on the wing? I don't think he can do it anymore. Jonathan Quick making starts. I'm worried about that. The team doesn't have a perfect blend of just competitors and guys, and when Panarin's involved and he makes that much money, it makes it difficult, and that was a mistake from the beginning to give him that contract. But you did, and now you have to live with it. The Rangers will miss the playoffs in the Metropolitan Division. They'll miss the playoffs in the entirety of the league. They're missing the playoffs. They will not get a wild card. They will not make the playoffs in the Metropolitan. I might be wrong, but this is my spiciest take so far. The Rangers miss. I love Shesterkin. I love Mika Zibanejad. Heedle's a great player. Keandre Miller, Fox, Trouba. But they're going to miss. Because the rest of their team just can't hold up. Third seed in the Metropolitan Division, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. Kyle Dubas, new general manager, new president. He came in and he started buying new groceries. Pulled off the new Erik Karlsson trade, pairing EK with Chris Letang and two of the most dynamic defensemen in the last decade in the NHL. Acquiring Lars Eller, lots of postseason experience in Washington and Colorado. Getting Riley Smith shortly after the season ended for like a 3rd round pick. A really good, you get him basically for, I like that deal. Noah Chari, who we acquired from St. Louis as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who will be on that 3rd line, compete very hard. I love Achari. And they signed Ryan Graves, gave him 7 years, about 5 too many, maybe 4 too many if I'm being fair. But I do like Ryan Graves. He is a good defenseman. And you take him away from New Jersey, so that's another positive in your division. So looking at all of that, Karlsson, Letang, Graves, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, Marcus Pettersson, Chad Ruhwedel should be their top 6. Dumoulin departs, which is a loss, but as I've talked about before, I love Dumoulin when they were winning cups. The injuries have taken a toll on his body. He's not the same defenseman anymore. So it's a net positive that he's gone. The defense is better. My concern here is you have Karlsson, Letang, Joseph, who all really like to take chances. How do they fare defensively as a team? With an older core up front, is also you still have Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, Rust, Raquel, Jeff Carter, much to their chagrin, who's still under contract. And you have Tristan Jarry, who they re-signed, and Alex Nedeljkovic should be the goaltending tandem after Casey DeSmith was traded to the Vancouver Canucks and then flipped to the Montreal Canadiens. So Pittsburgh did a lot. Dubas clearly said our window is still open. We have an older core. Our team is not going to be good in a couple years. We'll be too old to compete. We have to try right now, and it's a perfect time because you're in a division that isn't all that great. You're in a division that, quite frankly, could Pittsburgh finish second in the Metropolitan Division? Yes, they could. They need health. They need Tristan Jarry to be adequate, which he was not last year. He needs to be available, and he needs to make big saves because Pittsburgh, like Washington, did not make the postseason last year. And this Fenway Sports Group is not happy with it because they fired Brian Burke and they fired Ron Hextall, and now Kyle Dubas is here to do the job. And he could have decided to blow it up, but he decided to go against it, and we'll see how it plays out for him. The changes he's made will be enough to make the playoffs. I don't view the Pittsburgh Penguins as a Stanley Cup contender myself. I think they're a good team. They can compete in this division. They're better than Washington. They're better than the Islanders. And they're even better than the Rangers, even though the Rangers have a better goaltender than any team in this division, in Igor Shesterkin. But I think Karlsson will be motivated. He's on a team now. He's playing with Sidney Crosby, who wants to win at least one more before his career's over. Haven't really been close haven't got out of the first round since 2017. So it's been a minute for him to have some success and see what they can do. Malkin played all 82 last year. At his age, that's incredible. Let's see if he can do it again. Gensel, hopefully he can be back healthy early on to the season. He's so valuable when he plays because he's an awesome player. Credit to Dubas, credit to Pittsburgh for keeping their window open. I think they could have went in a different direction and blew it up and traded Crosby and gotten assets, but they decided to go in this direction. They will make the playoffs in the Metro. I have them finishing third. New Jersey Devils. Obviously a playoff team last year. Had a great season. And they're bringing back a similar group. They did add Tyler Toffoli in a trade with the Calgary Flames. They got him for really nothing, which a trade I like. They also had a Colin Miller, the veteran defenseman, coming over from Buffalo. Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Dawson Mercer, Nico Hischier, Michael McLeod, Timo Meier, Andre Palat. That forward group's pretty damn good. Jack Hughes had an awesome season last year, showing people just how good he was, quite frankly. I think we should expect an even bigger jump this year. He's 22, still incredibly young. But you look at his stats last year, he got to 99 points. 99 points at age 22, went from 56 points to 99. 26 goals to 43, 30 assists to 56. I think his numbers are going to stay consistent because look, Bratt, great passer, help him finish. Dawson Mercer's perfect. Timo Meier is a great goal scorer. Andre Palat did not play basically last year until January. If he's available the entire year, you got yourself a damn good team in New Jersey. Toffoli is another winger that will bring some toughness, bring some experience. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He's played in 3 Stanley Cups, 2 with the Kings and 1 with the Montreal Canadiens. I think Jack Hughes will get to 100 points this year. I think he'll get to 45 goals. He'll push for 50. Dawson Mercer will take another step, 25 to 30 goal scorer. He's just a great player, Dawson Mercer. But you look at New Jersey. They added Timo Meier. You add Toffoli when he's available. You signed Palat last offseason. Tom Fitzgerald's been aggressive in making this team more competitive and making them a legit Stanley Cup contender. What he needs to do now, he has Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid as their goaltending tandem. You need to find a guy. I talked about Carter Hart, and I look at Connor Hellebuyck. Those 2 teams falter. If Hellebuyck becomes available, Winnipeg should be on the phone calling New Jersey. What will you give us for him? Will you sign him long term? Because that's important to him. Will you give him a contract? I don't think teams want to do it, which might be the reason why trades did not happen this summer. But New Jersey should look at their situation and go, hey, the team we lost to last year really should have gotten to the Stanley Cup final in the Eastern Conference in Carolina, but Florida just stunned everybody. Carolina's a juggernaut. If we need to get by them to get to at least a conference final. We need a better goaltender to do it. Vitek Vanacek will not be the guy to do it. He'll be a solid regular season goaltender. Schmid and him will be a solid tandem. Not great, but not horrible. And we love Dougie. Siegenthaler was a godsend. What an addition he was. Marino, Luke Hughes, who they'll have now for the full season. Kevin Ball. But for New Jersey, what I'd do is I'd say look at Hellebuck and I'd look at their back end to see if you can make an addition throughout the year. Is there a team willing to trade off a big defenseman piece? Is there a team willing to give up a goaltender that we could acquire to help us? Because in this division, you look around and go, Shesterkin, Sorokin with the Islanders, Kemper. You could make the argument, maybe other than Columbus, that New Jersey has the worst goaltending tandem in the division, but the rest of their team is so good that they can overcome it. And Vanacek's not a horrible goaltender, but he's not a name that really makes you excited. I think New Jersey's going to score a lot of goals. Lindy Ruff returns as head coach. They know what they're doing. They know their identity. They're a fun team to watch. I have New Jersey finishing second in the Metropolitan Division, behind the division winner, the Carolina Hurricanes. The well-oiled machine that is Carolina. Conference final appearance last year, getting swept by the Florida Panthers. Rob Brind'Amour obviously returns. What did they do? Well, they went out and got Dmitry Orlov, really the biggest defensive piece on the open market. 2-year deal in their window. They bring him in from the Boston Bruins. Like we all knew, Tony DeAngelo was going to get bought out by the Flyers because they couldn't get a deal made. I said when it happened, Tony DeAngelo had his most successful year with Rob Brind'Amour in Carolina. He's going to go back. He did. Tony DeAngelo, now on the back end. They signed Nathan Beaulieu to a PTO. We'll see if he can make the team. They added Michael Bunting from the Toronto Maple Leafs on a 4-year deal. And they also signed Brendan Lemieux, who was former Los Angeles King, to add some toughness to the back end of this team. Aho returns on a new long-term deal. Svechnikov, Stefan Nason, Teuvo Teravainen, Jordan Stahl was locked up. Kiefer Bellows, Seth Jarvis, who's an awesome player. Bunting on the wing. This team will never wow you with star power, but they wow you with the way they're structured they play, the way they all buy in to Rob Brind'Amour and just play that way. But their back end, Tony DeAngelo, Orlov, Brent Burns, Brett Pesce, Brady Shea, Jacob Slavin. Do you get a better top six? And you also have Jalen Chatfield, who played over 65 games last year, and Caleb Jones, who has bounced around and played a lot of games with Chicago last year. So they have basically 8 NHL defensemen at their disposal. And Jones and Chatfield aren't going to play because that top six is loaded. Brady Shea was awesome last year in Carolina. Jacob Slavin, who was number 50 on TSN's rankings as the top 50 players, he's better than number 50. He's the human eraser. He's a perfect defenseman. He doesn't make mistakes. He pairs well with every player. I mean, it's incredible what he can do. And he's on this team with Brent Burns. They were an awesome defensive pairing. Burns had a lot of points. Slavin was the human eraser. Toronto's very good, as I talked about yesterday. They're going to win the Atlantic, and I think either Carolina or Toronto will obviously win the best record in the East. I'm going to go through the West. I'm not going to say who's going to win the President's Trophy yet because I really want to go through that and dissect it because there are some good teams out West that we will discuss. We'll talk about the Central Division tomorrow. But Carolina's good. They're deep. They have options. Their defense is stacked. That's the best way to win a championship, is to have a great defense when you get into the postseason. I think they're pissed as well because they believe they should have beat Florida. I think Toronto has that same feeling. I think Carolina has that same feeling. They look at themselves in the mirror and go, we lost to Florida. We lost to the Panthers. We should have gotten to the Stanley Cup final. Maybe we would have beat Vegas. Who knows? But Carolina's improved their team, in my opinion, and they already had a good team. They're a team that won't have to do much at the trade deadline. I still like another forward, another name that can provide something that can be another goal scorer that can help Aho and Svechnikov in those big moments. Who that might be, I don't know. We'll see how the season goes. But a team in the division, the Philadelphia Flyers, and a guy like Travis Konechny, would he be awesome on this team with Rob Brind'Amour, his piss and vinegar, and the style that he played. Max Domi really succeeded with Rob Brind'Amour. I think Konechny would be even better because he's a better player. Carolina's absolutely contender to win the President's Trophy throughout the entire NHL because of how consistent they play on a night-in, night-out basis, and they approach every game the same way. Every game the same way. So I'm very impressed with the Carolina Hurricanes, and I expect them to have another great regular season and to be a threat come postseason time once again. Other NHL news today, a number of cuts this morning. New Jersey Devils waived goaltender former Maple Leaf Erik Källgren. He's one of 13 players on waivers. So Källgren cut for the Devils. Let's see, any other news today? NHL Top 50. So we've been talking about it all week every day, so we'll go through it again. Saw Brian Hayes didn't have Ovechkin in his top 50 players. That is offensive to me. O-Dog was right about that. Top 50, so this is 30 to 21. Number 30, I think they have Erik Karlsson here. Oh, they have Karlsson at 21. Pardon me. Number 30, Artemi Panarin. Gross. 29, Roman Josi. 28, Jack Eichel. I like they had that's a good one. Miro Heiskanen, 27. Oof. A little low. Sorokin. 25, Dahlin. 24, Timmy Stützle, my guy. 23, Victor Hedman. 22, Sasha Barkov. That's well too high, in my opinion. And Erik Karlsson at 21, which I could take that or leave it. I'd probably leave it if you ask me. But so check any other NHL news. I know roster cuts are coming here. Things will be happening over the next couple of days. Teams trimming down their rosters, having to make last-second decisions. There's still a number of preseason games to come. Derek Stepan retires after 13 NHL seasons. Good for him. Montreal Canadiens cut Logan Mailloux, their 20-year-old defenseman. He's going down to Laval. So no big news, no big cuts today as of yet. Red Wings, Penguins tonight, Rangers, Devils, Flames, Oilers. Another complaint I have about NHL preseason, why are teams that you're going to play so much during the regular season, or teams that you play opening night, why are you playing them in the preseason? Play teams out west. Play at neutral sites. Leafs play the Islanders. I don't get it. Playing Montreal 85 times and you play them next Wednesday, opening night. It's like you've already seen the game 5 times. But what do I know? Today we have Major League Baseball. 4 game 2s. Starting in a couple hours. So gear up for that. Tomorrow on the program, we will talk about the Central Division. In the third of our season previews, we will recap and react to the baseball today. We'll talk about the matchup on Thursday Night Football between the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders, and any other news that comes our way between now and then. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for the support, as always. I'm Noah Warren. This is To The Point.